why don't you begin? Share a little bit about, just briefly, who you are. Give us a little context.
Thanks, Noemi, for inviting me to be to reconnect with you again, and I appreciate your leadership in bringing people from all over the country together as educators. I serve as Chief of Staff for the Division of Inclusion and Equity at Clemson, and also I have a dual role where I serve as Director of Hispanic Outreach. We're very blessed. We've got a great president at Clemson, President Clemens, where he's put resource dollars to create a division. So we have approximately about 30 teammates in our division. So it's not just an office; it's several offices that make this division. So I'm very excited to work with them, and collectively we try to make sure that Clemson is inclusive, and also the state of South Carolina. There's equity and access there. So I'm very happy to be part of that. And then Director of Hispanic Outreach. This is a position that's very rare across the country, the only one of its kind in South Carolina, where the university wants to be intentional in engaging Hispanic students, staff, and faculty. And I've been there now 3 years. And I tell you what, serving with a great boss, Lee Gill, he's our Chief Diversity Officer. As you mentioned, these times, Noemi, have been really unprecedented, as probably people have said that a lot these days. I've been very fortunate to be able to work with a great team because, this is the COVID experience that we're going through has really exposed a lot of inequities across the country. And, we see that especially with the students and families that we serve. And for example, when a lot of our students went on spring break recently, when they came back, they didn't realize that, they were not coming back, from spring break. That's when the decree was to stay home. And so right then and there, Noemi, we saw that there's a lot of students that sometimes wouldn't have laptops, or wouldn't have headsets, or wouldn't have any hotspots to connect. And we had done, I want to back up and say, Clemson as overall, we had been looking at this situation. I know we have great leaders at Clemson, and as early as in January, when things were going on across the world, we were looking at that as a university. And so we had put things in place to just trying to see what that would look like. So during the semester, we even had a kind of like a practice e-learning just to kind of figure out the bugs during the spring semester.
Yeah.
Also, our executive leadership had wanted to make sure that our students were safe, so they were starting to bring our students back home during the spring semester. So we were looking at this, but still, this pandemic has really, as I mentioned, has really exposed the inequities, like I mentioned. But like many of the educators are right across the country, a community comes together, and that's the case with here at Clemson. We have a lot of teammates here that reached out to students to see what their needs were. Some of them, again, did not have laptops. So we reached out to our chief information officer to let them know that our students needed that kind of support. So in many cases, we overnighted those laptops. If they needed hotspot.
Like we've heard so much of this happening like in secondary schools, but the fact that Clemson University, being the huge and large university that it is, not as great as UGA, but
I love it.
But it's just amazing though how your team has. You went to the CIO, your team rallied around this and overnighted laptops to ensure that all of your students had access to still continue the semester. That's just kudos to you. I saw, Julio, by the way, someone in here said that you all have an amazing president, as you briefly mentioned him, and so it looks like folks are really looking forward to hearing more about how you all have been doing this.
Yeah, and there's while we definitely have done our best to plan as possible, like everyone else, we're all kind of adjusting to just new things. One of the things that we did a lot of programming when it comes to diversity and inclusion at Clemson, and so what happens when there's nobody in front of you, to be able to carry out that programming. But I got to give a shout out to my teammates. Everyone at the Harvey and Lucinda Gam Multicultural Center. What they did is, while they saw that they couldn't have the programs right in front of students, they found innovative ways to create virtual programs through, whether it be Zoom, through it be Facebook, group meetings, Instagram, you name it. They found ways to get this message or this programming virtually. So that's something that I'm really proud that we're having to adapt and learn. And something that I know I look at a lot is enrollment. I mean, sometimes it feels like summer because it's taken forever, but we're only in April, and we're for me, I know I'm looking at what does enrollment look like for the fall. And so I know our office is working very closely with the admissions office to ensure that we create like a virtual open houses and just a virtual experience. So if parents or students have any questions about Clemson, there's that communication, and there's not a gap. So I definitely, this definitely pandemic is, putting us in a position where we have to create things, but the important thing that there is communication.
Yeah. Wow. It sounds like you all have definitely, like, communication is something that continues to, like, stick out. Teamwork. I want to just, like, scale back real quick here. And someone also, by the way, shouted out the Call Me Mr. program.
I love that program. Yes.
Say a little bit about Call Me Mr. program for all those folks who don't know. You have to, like, listen to this. This program is doing so much, especially in Black and Brown communities.
Yeah, so if people think, when you go to school, especially if you're someone of color, and in many cases we might not see teachers that look like us. Well, imagine there was a program where they create that culture of mentorship, and to be able to get people that, or students that are interested in going into the education field, but provide that support system, that mentorship to help them get to and through college, and then to have a young man of color, whether it be Black and Brown, in the classroom. If people don't think that's important in the classroom, it sure is. I know from personal experience, I was doing some work in the community, Noemi, and as some students were walking into the first grade classroom, I was volunteering to read that day, and I was hearing students speak in Spanish, and as they were walking in, I chimed in and said something in Spanish, and they were just blown away. So it just shows the power of making sure that there's representation in the classroom. And the Call Me Mr. program has been there for years, and it's been a great model for many colleges to implement. So we're very excited that's housed right there at Clemson.
Saying it is an amazing program as well. I've also seen the impact of it both as a former school principal and now just, like, even removed from schools, but still learning and hearing about all the impact that it is having. So Julio, there's quite a few Clemson fans here. Some folks said Clemson almost got me, but they ended up going somewhere else. One person said that. But here's a question for you that, if you feel like answering now, you can, or you can make your way back to it. But it says, what programming are you putting in place for retention as many universities prepare for possible shutdowns until January 2021?
Yeah. So retention is definitely something, really big at any university. One of the things that we've been trying to do is to make sure that we focus, especially a lot of the first generation and students that are very Pell eligible. Data shows, Noemi, that, I was thinking, even when I reflect on my own experience, when I filled out the FAFSA, boy, my EFC and my was like 000. So we see data show that sometimes many of our students that are Pell eligible are the first ones in their family to get exposed to college, and so we've created task forces to ensure that we're engaging students in not only at the very beginning before they come to Clemson, because we want to make sure that things are equitable and inclusive. And when we think about inclusion, by the way, I want to throw that my definition of inclusion.
Oh, please do. Y'all ready to hear this? Take notes. Got a piece of paper and pen out.
My definition of inclusion is the intentional planning for everyone to succeed. And so, when we think about what are we doing to ensure that a lot of our Pell eligible students, we create systems to ensure that they have access to a quality education like Clemson. And when they get to Clemson, what are some of these retention programs that we do to ensure that it's all hands on deck? So through our student affairs program, there's offices or programs such as Brother to Brother, Sister to Sister, Renaissance Man, Call Me Mister. There's just so many programs at Clemson it's directed to engage first generation students that ordinarily fall under that criteria where they need more support. And so that's something that we're constantly looking at Clemson. And I know there's other colleges that are doing as well, but I'll tell you what, I'm very proud to be associated with a university that wants to make sure that everyone's successful.
Man, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Julio. So Julio, I do have this question. So from your leadership lens, from being at this such high level at Clemson University, I mean, you have regular interactions with the president at Clemson. But from the leadership perspective, because we have a variety of folks on our live ed chat tonight. We have some folks who are school leaders. We have some people who are over post-secondary outcomes. We have parents of college students, and we also have parents of students who are ready to transition in. And we also have leaders, just not necessarily in education, but just from the leadership, just at in a leadership role. So what advice or from the leadership lens, is there any advice, like something that you have found useful and necessary for yourself in this season, and something that you're even like thinking about in terms of like, what do you want to sustain even coming out of this pandemic?
Well, absolutely. I just been part of the President's Leadership Institute, and something that we've learned a lot, Noemi, is the importance right now of connection. Connection right now is so important, whether you be a parent, a teacher, a superintendent, anybody right now, we really need to be connected. It reminds me of a point that John Gordon said about the difference between average teams and great teams.
Ooh, speak on it.
The difference is the level of connection.
Yeah.
And because the level of connection will equate the level of commitment. Great teams, when adversity comes, according to John Gordon, he says that when adversity comes, great teams, they run to each other and they fight for each other. And I was thinking right now, it really takes a community. We can have some good ideas internally as far as a teacher or a principal or whatever educator, but this right now, connecting with our parents, connecting with our students, it's going to take everybody. I was having a conversation recently with a high school, Noemi, and I was thinking about how important it is that we have that engagement. And I think this particular school that I have in mind has a great team, great principal, great staff. But I asked them, I said, your seniors that are about to graduate, what do you think how are they looking at the fall right now? Are they nervous about it with everything going on? I asked them, maybe how about the students that their parents are Spanish speaking? How about them? Do they know what the summer's going to be like? What August should look like? Do they have confidence in the fall? And that person said, that's some really good questions. My point is, I think all of us right now need to connect even more, because the more we connect, all of us across the country, like the way even we're doing right now, if we do that during this time, when we're on the other side, and I'm very positive, be soon, and we're gonna do this, we're gonna get out of this together, you know what I mean? But when we get on the other side, our commitment to each other as educators is gonna be stronger than ever. Yeah. So if I know it's not deep, but something that I think it's just real important that we connect as educators as much as possible. So I know for me on a daily basis is I've got, my things to do, emails and so forth, but I always ask, who is someone that I haven't talked to that I should talk to? And whether it be a student or a parent, I try to pick up the phone and say, I want to call so-and-so. We don't have to Zoom. We can just pick up the phone and call. And I know it's helped me a lot, and I hope it's helped a lot of people in the community.
One huge piece of advice, you all, obviously we've been talking about this on the platform, but I think we need to continue to hear it, is how important it is to continue to build community with our stakeholders, but even personally, right? How to continue to build upon the relationships that we have. And it's just about picking up the phone call. And Julio, I spoke to you a couple of days ago about that. And, I started to do that. Just, you know what, forget the texting. Let's figure out a time. Let me just pick up the phone and call someone. And so I think we all need to be reminded of that during this time. And further, like, leveraging that relationship, those relationships that we've grown and strengthened in this time when we come out of this pandemic, which we all pray and hope that it will be soon. And so, Julio, are there any last, and folks, please feel free to ask any kind of questions that you may have for Julio Hernandez. That's why he's here. We've brought him on to answer any questions that you may hear from someone or that you have heard from someone. But Julio, as we begin to wrap up here, are there any final thoughts that you'd like to leave us with, especially as we're thinking about what is this going to look like if I'm a parent and I have a child, I'm trying to figure out funding for my kid. How do I make this work? That you've seen come up a lot that you just would like to share with our community.
Well, I'm a big believer, Noemi, that all of us, collectively, we could take ownership of our community success. And I think we have hardworking teachers, principal educators just throughout the country. They're doing everything they can. But again, to know that there's resources out there. I want an organization I want to give a shout out to that I support. I'm on their board, Hispanic Alliance. They're here in Greenville. They're involved in the community, and they've been putting a lot of information, bilingual information about COVID and community and so forth. And something that we, as a board, we talked about, can they be a resource to school districts? And I was thinking there's so many viewers right now that there are, and whether it be Milwaukee or wherever, there's a local organization there that can support the school district, can support the educator, that can support that. My point is, again, that community needs to stay connected and keep talking because we need each other. I'll tell you what, one of the most challenging things so far for me sometimes is staying positive. I mean, there's just a lot of news there. I know here in South Carolina, we just experienced a tornado, but I think what's been encouraging is calling someone and just staying connected, because again, the level of connection will equate the level of commitment to each other,
Wow.
especially to our students.
Wow. The level of connection will equate to the level of commitment coming out of all of this. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. There is one question here, Julio. It says, what are colleges going to do with grading here in South Carolina? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, some information has been now posted where, students have that liberty or that opportunity to, go for the grade. But if for some reason they feel that it's just not going to be a good fit or it's not going to work out, they have that option to do, pass or fail. So that has been something that I really applaud our provost, our president, and all the educators within higher ed, that they want to make sure that the students are not penalized, that student success comes first. So that's something that I think not just Clemson, but a lot of other universities are doing across the country.
Wow, that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Julio. So a couple of final things, you all. If you have any additional questions around what Clemson University is doing, or if you are at a university level and you'd like to connect with Julio, feel free to send him a DM after this live ed chat. Julio, we want to thank you. He embodies servant leadership. He sits on numerous boards. He is at such a high level at Clemson University. And by the way, working on his doctoral. He's also a doctoral candidate. And really also beyond that, if you were to see Julio on day to day, this man is showing up at schools, reading stories to children, going to check on families to see what it is that they need. I know a lot of my former students who are currently in college now or transitioning, you know, they look up to Julio, and they say, hey, you know what, there's this guy at Clemson University that I really believe can help me. And he's just, you know, for him, it's not about like positional authority. It's all about that personal authority. And he certainly serves the community. And we just appreciate everything that you're doing for everyone out there, Julio. So thank you so much to you, to Clemson University, to the team. Go Dogs, just in case anyone Tigers.
Go Tigers.
I had to throw that in. But Julio, thank you so much again for joining.